Well, hi, good morning. Thanks so much for joining me here in my shop where everything is going wrong right from the start. Oh my gosh, how can this be happening to me? Oh boy, I thought I had everything all straightened out at the end of the video, which I posted late last night. Thought I was really in a good state to start here. Well, I just don't know. So I turned on the receiver expecting to see the nice waveform over here to start off with. And that's what I got right there. Let me just click the zero here. How do you like that, eh? Oh my gosh, what happened to this now? Oh my gosh, everything is going downhill here rapidly. How can this happen? Where'd it go? Did I bump this? Yeah, that's what it is. Huh. Oh my god, here we go. Okay, so that's the 0 point. When I flip it to DC, hey! Bad scope here. Bad scope, bad everything, bad equipment, bad everything, bad. Well, that should be a waveform. Instead I'm getting a DC voltage there. Oh my gosh, but that's not really what's gone wrong. That's just what went wrong while I got to the next thing that's gone wrong. Oh my gosh. So I started tuning this radio. I've been tuning it this way because there's no play in the tuning when you tune it this way. But as I turned this morning, I heard a sound of gears bumping over each other. So when you turn the tuning knob, it ain't no tuning anymore. The tuning knob is geared to a plastic wheel in here, and I hate to even look. Oh, there we go. Drop that on the floor. Let me just grab the other camera and we're just going to take a look at what has happened here. What has happened here? Oh man, I hope this isn't a bad thing. So down there you see that, I'll point to it, you see this gear here. In fact, I'm going to turn the radio off right now because we don't need it on. So this gear is engaging with a cog, which you can't quite see, which is being turned by this. So turn this, you turn the counterbalance. You can see there's some gearing rate that even gears it down there. Sorry, I'm having a little camera trouble holding this. Right, there we are. There's a gear underneath the big one, and you can see it's engaging with the orange, with the yellow wheel. And no, it's not. So this has always been a very curious mechanical setup here. I've never really studied it. It looks like it's got a clutch. A lot of these radios have clutches in them, or transmissions literally, which will change the gearing when you change the band. And that's so you can use one knob to tune both AM and FM and have separate pointers at the same time. This one doesn't work this way. This one has a separate knob for tuning FM and a separate knob for tuning AM. So that kind of gearing's not there. So what that clutch-like arrangement is for down there, I'm not really sure. Now I think this plastic piece is slipping, which is a really bad sign. Or what has happened. I don't really know. You know, this is such a depressing situation here. I've literally worn this radio out doing this work. Oh my gosh. Well, it's a beautiful day today. I have so many headaches going on in here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to abandon the shop this morning, spend my day doing other stuff, and panic about this later tonight or maybe tomorrow. And So depressing to have done so much work, really not get anywhere decent, and then have something like this start happening, which it could be a snap to fix. If those were all metal parts down there, I would think just a set screw and move and tighten. It's plastic. I don't know. So there you go. It's a depressing start. I think maybe what I'll do is I'm just going to go and sit down and drink some coffee, calm myself down, because I'm almost shaky after this happened. Yeah, wow. Yeah. Well, it's the next day here, and I'm feeling a lot better about the situation yesterday. That was a bigger story yesterday. What happened with the radio was only a small part, a long series of struggles I had, nothing to do with the radio here, lots to do with the computer in my shop. So when I finally got to this thing, that was too much. Plus, rather than come right in my shop yesterday morning, I went out shopping in the morning and started in here a little late, so I abandoned hope quickly. But I couldn't stay out of my shop, so I came in here later in the afternoon just to look the situation over with the tuning gear, and fortunately I think it's a fairly minor problem. We're going to look into that right away, and it's going to end up getting us into these push buttons here. Now the Mr. K, the owner of the radio, has told me he doesn't care about the push buttons, and you know, I kind of agree with that. It's tricky to get these guys tuned dead on anyway. You know, it's an FM radio, it has an AFC, so maybe these would work fairly well. But I think in many cases you just can't get these guys tuned just exactly where you need them, so you end up doing it with the knob. Anyway, but these guys are implicated in the situation with the knob that's disconnected. Now, see? Disengage knob here. Oh, now it's engaging. Now it's not. What's happening there? Okay, let's see if we can take a closer look with the other camera. I'm going to apologize right now for the possibility of focus problems with this camera. Almost guaranteed, in fact, but let's see what we can see right off the bat here. So we're looking down in the yellow geared piece, and that piece is gearing. You can't see the gear it's contacting, but off that big wheel, actually right behind the counterweight, or the flywheel there. Somewhere down there, there's going to be a gear going into the yellow plastic gear. And the reason I'm having trouble moving the camera is because of the funny angle of the camera and my screen and everything. When I move my hand, the camera doesn't go where I want it. So, but here's the interesting thing. Now, if you look at that yellow gear, that's quite a substantial piece of plastic there. And it's got a slot here. That slot caught my eye right there. That slot caught my eye. Why do they put a slot there? They put a slot there so something can get in the slot and yank on this thing. And you can see it. If I can move the camera. I can't. That's the end of the travel for the camera. But if you look just past the slot, you see a shiny piece of metal, and you can tell it's sticking up into the slot. So I'm going to push a button a little bit here in the front. This is as much as I did yesterday, so we're right exactly where we are. Okay, so can you see that metal moved a little bit? There you can see the radio. I pushed the button hard enough to make the radio retune. See it go back and forth? So the objective here is to, when you begin pressing the button out here a little bit, the first thing you should do is move this gear to the left. It won't be left on your screen. And doing that, it separates the gear from the knob. Then when you push the button a little harder, it'll spin the tuner to where you want it to go, and it will avoid spinning the knob on the front. So this is a anti-knob spin control system. Mechanical interface for anti-knob spin. during push button operation. Let me try a different push button here. You can see it's trying to pull the gear back. Not doing very well. There's another one. Now, you wouldn't imagine that gear should slide so easily on the shaft. And there's this very much a clutch-like looking thing here, which I'm not sure what it's doing either. And there's a metal plate in between. What is all that about? I don't really know. I've ignored all this to this point, of course. Let's see if we can figure out how this really works. So I'm going to turn the big drive wheel out here. This is what made this problem show up. Turning the drive wheel, managed to get this yellow gear to separate enough from the front knob. So I'm going to turn it a bit. Now, the actual tuning is up here. It's this wheel driven by the knob at the front through strings drives this wheel. This wheel actually goes into the tuner. It's a very complicated situation here. So this wheel is not necessarily, oh, I'll take that back. I was going to say not necessarily going to drive the pointer. Yeah, you would want the pointer to move. You want the pointer to move when you push the button, so the pointer is showing you where you ended up. Okay, let's try pushing the button again and just watch all this action here. Okay, as you can see, the pointer is moving. See, the mechanism's retuning. The button appears to be, well, it feels like it requires way too much force to put it in. So I think what we've got here is just a simple matter of lubrication that has failed. Now, you'd have to think that yellow piece is going to slide back and forth on the shaft. Or is the entire shaft moving? Which is not very likely. Good question. How else? Let's see if we can get another view of this. If I come in right through the back of the radio here. The radio's not switched on. Over this way. Here we can get in pretty close here. I want to be that close. That's too close. There we are. Well, I think I see lots of springs inside. Let me push these buttons over. Yeah, if something's pushing the button back, there's springs inside there. And you can see the metal bar that the piece is popping through down here, this thing right at the end of my finger there. So that bar is probably the release bar. And what happens is if you push this far enough, the button, no, maybe it isn't. A release bar. May not be a release bar in this. So that just may be a support for the end of the button mechanism to ride on. Trying every button just to see if they feel any different. They plunge further and further as you move to the left here. This one goes a long ways. It's probably because the radio is tuned where it is. Let me tune it by hand here. You see lots of mechanism in there that probably needs lubrication. This looks like dried up lubrication here. Yeah. Lots of things that need to be lubricated. What is there that you should not lubricate? Occasionally in these things there's stuff you should not lubricate. Don't think that's the case here. That's certainly the case with record players. So hopefully while I'm doing this, the radio is actually tuning. So the key tuning mechanism is locked together, like the pointer and this wheel and all. It's all locked together. Is there any play? So I'm feeling for play. I'd say no. There's no play. So I noticed the whole time I was doing this that the front knob has a lot of play in it. And that could be because the gears were just barely engaged. Look, they're engaged now. Wait a minute. How's this work? I'm turning the yellow wheel. Nothing else is turning. I'm able to turn the yellow wheel. And what about this weird clutch thing? Looks like the only way for the drive to get through is for that clutch to close. I mean, maybe there's a key. So I'm thinking that yellow piece should be sliding back and forth, and somehow it must be keyed onto the shaft. Can we see anything like that anywhere? I don't see anything. What makes it grab that shaft? The shaft. Oh, wait a minute now. This is kind of weird. How can I turn this? But that doesn't move. Yet from out here, so it must be there's a straight shaft through. The yellow thing, I don't know. I don't know exactly how this is supposed to work. I don't remember seeing an exploded view or anything. Now, let's assume it's stuck back. I put some pressure on it here. Doesn't seem to do anything. How can it be stuck when the shaft is rotating inside of it? Well, what could it be stuck on? This is kind of mysterious to me, how this is supposed to work. This guy, this is hard metal here. It looks like it has some kind of rubbery black material in it. Well, why would that be? Because these plates get pushed together very solid. How do they get pushed together? The only thing that's going to move is this yellow gear based on the button. Based on the button. Something should be springing back. That's not springing back. Buttons are springing. You can see the springs now pretty clearly through the camera shot here on the buttons, but there must be another spring pushing on this thing somewhere. Let's go look in the back again and see if we can spot. I would think it would be a pretty strong spring pushing back on there. Oh, too close. See any spring at all. The button springs are enough to. So what makes that mechanism move? So that a finger in the slot there is hooked up to a bar. There's I think I see springs. What are those? I can't really tell you what it is I'm looking at exactly. Appears to be a series of springs. One of them appears to be there's a big spring, I think, down under there. You can't tell what I'm talking about, can you? Let me get a closer up shot here. I'm just going to fix the focus and get in there a little better, because I think we need to really see it clearly. Okay, let's look like this. See what we can see. Okay, and I see the individual button springs all along there, and I think behind this metal piece at the bottom are more springs there. Look at, what is that? So in the bottom left corner of the mechanism housing there appears to be, looks like a worm gear to me. Is that a spring? Let's push some buttons here. So how far back could this thing go? This metal, see the button comes out, it pushes it a little to the right, and then it's out of the way. You can see those pieces of metal are shaped to skid. Well, those certainly need to be lubricated. This thing is not returning far enough to the left. Now why is that exactly? Is it because the yellow thing is stuck somehow? The metal slide bar is stuck somehow? Surely I can push on that, can't I? Can I not push on that? See if I can just get the camera to sit right inside the radio here on its own. No. The answer is no. Don't really want it on its side. That's going to confuse me. Come on. Phooey. There we go. Okay, let's see if I can focus that camera just a wee bit better. Okay, I'll stick a little more light in there. Well, that's definitely a spring there. Normally springs, you compress them and then they push back, you know, normally stretch them and then they pull back, but who knows. Still a little out of focus, but I don't think I can do much about that. Okay, push the button. I'll probably eject the camera is what's going to happen. So this comes out. It hits that bar, but the bar is actually already to the right quite a distance. So I'm going to try to move it manually here. Wow. That doesn't, you know, sometimes it just takes a little push and these things will move, but wow, this is not wanting to move. Why is that? Is it because this up here, the yellow thing, doesn't want to move? Okay, so I'm going to use powerful leverage here. I'm going to be a little careful. I'm going to stick the screwdriver right in here and then rotate it. It's got a big handle on it, so I have got a lot of power here. No, it's not interested in moving. It does not appear to be stuck on the shaft. The shaft rotates inside it, right? How can it be stuck on it? It cannot be stuck on the shaft. What's the whole idea of this thing? The yellow gear gets driven forward, engages with this. Oh, it's engaged now. I'm turning the knob on the front. Engaged to some degree. Oh. Okay, there's more to the story here because it's turning the yellow thing fine, but nothing is moving. The tuning is not happening. The tuning wheel's not happening. Okay, let's try moving that bar again. I'll try it with more power this time. If I can stick a screwdriver in here. Not wide enough. And a big daddy. This one's a little wider. Camera's right in the way here. go. I got lots of power on here now. So looking down, can't see anything. Nobody's looking down. So I'm looking down to see if these are sort of at the start point. It would look like they are. It would look like if I move this bar any farther with the screwdriver, then these things are going to no longer hit the slide edge of the little tab. They're going to be too far. Something odd has happened here. Look closer at this wheel. So there's a metal plate here. So does that what all turns? Okay, I gotta turn my camera around because I'm seeing it at a different angle here. I gotta keep seeing it the same way, or I'm gonna get all confused. Well, those two rubber things look like they would be pushed together and separated. Two rubber things. The one rubber thing looks like two rubber things. So that would make some sense. They're in the... Let me turn the big wheel here. Are they stuck together? See, the metal plate is connected to the yellow thing. Let me turn the knob. Yeah, the yellow plate is connected to the metal, is it? Or is that a reflection I see moving? I think it's a reflection on the edge of the plate. I'm seeing the reflection of the teeth. I think I see dirt on the, what I assume is a metal plate. It may not be metal. Maybe it's more plastic. Does not seem to be turning. So I thought this would be a snap. We'll spray a WD-40 and we're back in business, but I think it's important to figure out exactly what's going on before you start taking action. I can see dust on that metal, on what I think is a metal plate. It is not moving. And if I tune the radio this way, it's not moving either. Nobody wants to move that metal plate. So if these things are supposed to separate and come back together, that's what this is, a rubber clutch mechanism. So maybe the gears aren't really supposed to separate. The gears remain geared. Oops, sorry about that. Can't operate a camera here. The gears, maybe they're supposed to remain geared together. But then what's that finger for over there? And what really is supposed to move is the plate and the supposed rubber clutch system. What if I try to pry those apart? That sounds like a good job for the Swedish fish knife here. I'm not sure this is actually the Swedish fish knife. Okay, sticking a knife into the radio. I'm not going to push too hard here. I'm coming in at a bit of an angle anyway. So the key thing, of course, is to make the tuning knob work. The owner said he didn't care too much about the push buttons, but it'd be great if everything worked. Let me change things around here so I can bring the knife blade down right in line here. Any fish guts on this knife? too awkward. I can't really investigate with this big, fish knife. Not the best tool in an electronic shop. So we really don't know how this works. Okay, I'm going to stop for a minute. I'm going to check out the manual just in case I missed the whole story in the manual explaining all this. Maybe there is such a story being told in the manual. Not a hint as to how the mechanism actually works. No diagrams of it, nothing in the manual, but lots of instructions on how to work these buttons from a owner point of view. So what it says you do is you push these up, push them up, you push them up. You're supposed to push them up. These don't go up. It's at a quarter. This, to me, what this looks like is they've made these buttons so you can grab them with your finger. So a lot of these are pull out, push up, push down, push, push, push somehow. What? Let's take a look at the manual together on this. Here we are right here. Push button setup for FM program. Unlock all push buttons by pulling them up. Pulling them up. Don't push them up. Pull them up, approximately a quarter inch. Manually tune in your FM station. Do it with the AFC off. Make sure stereo indicator light comes on. You're just making sure you're getting it tuned really well. Slowly but firmly push down one of the push buttons. This procedure will automatically lock the station to that button, and anytime this button is operated again, the station will be heard. Repeat the same procedure for the remaining push buttons. Each push button to be locked to a different station. Station selection by means of the push button should always be done with the AFC switch on, and this is because they just can't make it that precise. Note, any push button can be set for any FM station. However, for convenience in memorizing the buttons, it's recommended to set the push buttons in the same sequence as the stations appear on the dial scale. Now, this isn't true of all radios with push buttons in it. Some radios, the push buttons have tuning in them, so the ones on the left are for the low end of the band, and the one in the middle is for the middle of the band, and the one on the right is for the upper end of the band, and you can't cross tune them. This one says no, you can have this thing tuning back and forth all you like. So it says pull them up approximately 1/4 inch. Unlock them all. Pull them up. Okay, that's pretty clear, isn't it? Pull them up. Is this so what would maybe up? Aha. This is normally this is normally laying on its back here, with these things all facing straight up. So pulling them up is pulling them out. Well, so that's why this got this. Well, why don't you come out? Why don't you come out? Wow. They're not all out now, are they? They can't be. That's from blue. That's from the locking bar in the wrong place, if there is one. So, plus with a lot of these buttons, when you push it in, it stays in. So we have to push the next button. The next button must release the one that stayed in. These ones don't seem to lock in. There's no locking release on them. Hey, that's how that works. Learn something new every day. Didn't I pull on that? I thought I pulled on that. I guess I never pulled on it. That says something about pulling on these too. You pull them right off. Well, I haven't gotten anywhere here yet. The mechanism is beyond my brain power at the moment. I can't quite figure out what they're... I know what the intentions are, but I can't figure out how they're achieving it. Don't know what that clutch-like thing is. Is it really a clutch? Don't know how a clutch would factor into this. Don't see why this gear thing is moving, not moving.
you know, it's designed to move the yellow gear back and forth, so it's got to be disengaging the gears. What the clutch is for, I don't know. Sometimes when you have to align a shaft, which is fixed on this piece of metal, this shaft, it's held, there's no doubt there'd be a sleeve in here. No, you know what? There is no sleeve. I'll take that back. It's just a great big hole. So this is completely supported by, oh my gosh, it's completely supported all the way back. It's back in here where that shaft gets its support. Let's see if I can move it up and down. Pretty darn stiff. And that's a continuous shaft all the way through to the far side. Yeah, there it is. For sure. Let me just, yeah. So the whole time I'm doing this, the knob is not turning because the gear is disengaged. Oh, okay. So what causes... I'm doing this in reverse because I'm holding the thing out here, the wheel out here. So why is that yellow thing not turning? Just because it were to be pushed forward and engaged with the knob gear, why would it start turning then? There's something that locks the yellow gear to the turning shaft. It looks to me like there's just no way you could move this yellow gear all the way to have a clutch action. Sorry, I think I just whacked one of my microphones there. So if a big thunk came in your head, I apologize for that. You know, like, you'd have to assume now that what is supposed to happen is, no, wait a minute, let's just see. So pushing the button pulls the gear, pulls this way. Releasing the button, you'd think it should snap back some distance. How far back can it snap when there's a gear to engage with down there? It can't go all the way over to this thing. So it has this metal plate. But the metal plate, how's that any good when the rubbery thing is in here? What I was going to say about this rubbery thing is sometimes when you have two shafts that have to be aligned, they'll put in a piece which will allow for a little bit of misalignment. And usually it's kind of a loosey thing with a springy metal and a few other little doodads to give you this ability. That's not the case here. It's a straight through shaft. What is that for? You'd have to think, you pull this back, this metal piece goes with it, and this clutch separates. So what's happening is this is being pulled back, but it's not pulling the clutch back. If what I'm saying is in any way accurate. You can see the clutch is on the shaft with a set screw. There's no reason to think it's loose or moved. Maybe this isn't metal on the outside. Oh yeah, it's definitely metal on the outside. Clutch failure. Throw in a pile of oil and away she'll go. Oh, that could be a big mistake. If there's a clutch in here and you get oil or grease on the clutch mechanism, well, maybe it won't clutch anymore after that. Oh my gosh, this is like looks like the simplest thing in the world, really, when you get down to it. But let me put some force on this guy again. Another way to put force on it from up here. It's actually a lot easier. So what I'm trying to do is move the yellow piece forward. Okay, now I got very strong leverage here, so I got to be a little careful. Break this part, and I think that's it for the radio. Okay, so you know it's gear. It's engaged with the gears. See if that metal plate is moving. No. Oh. Hey, what happened? I think maybe I got my screwdriver onto the yellow thing here. Just. Now what I'm worried is I make an observation, draw a conclusion, but it's wrong, and then I carry on with this wrong conclusion. Look. Did the plate do that? I'm trying to poise my screwdriver on the edge of the metal plate, so if the plate moves, the screwdriver moves. But I don't want it to touch the yellow thing. What goes on there? It seemed to engage for a moment. What if I flex that plate a little bit? Not much to it. Now, the plate move when I turn this. Doesn't seem to move. No, because I'm expecting the screwdriver to do that, right? Tricky. Tricky to get it on the plate only. Plate not moving. Okay, so I'm driving. I'm gonna put push and pull pressure on the wheel here while I'm banging the microphone. Whoops. And just see if there's some play in this. Not really. But this whole thing is moving. No play in it. So how can it be that if you drive the yellow wheel, that it then turns the shaft, when it doesn't seem to be attached to the shaft and cannot be attached to the shaft, or the button tuning would never do this? You just show me where to throw the oil. Show me the oil spot. This is an odd thing. You would expect, if you're using a clutch mechanism like this, that there'd be a pretty powerful spring pushing on stuff to clutch them together. And it doesn't make sense to me what they've done here. I can't figure out what their intentions were with it. You know, unless the clutch action takes place way down there. Let me get a better pointer. So way down in towards the shaft here is a this part looks just like this. Way down there. That gives you a bit of a surface to drive into this. There's something I'm not figuring out. Clearly, there's something I'm not figuring out. Yeah. Yeah, like this can't move forward any because it's got a gear that's up against down in here. So I mean, it is where it is. So we gotta assume this thing always spins with the knob. And then the separation is separating this yellow piece from the shaft, from the drive of the shaft. The only way I can see it is some kind of clutching thing in here. Unless this was keyed into the shaft or glued to the shaft. You know, maybe that's what's happened. This is supposed to be fixed to the shaft somehow. Then you push the button, this is separated off the gears. It does seem to want to do that. And then you can go back to using this because this is always fixed to the shaft. So was it some glue under there that's given out? If this was not, and then what would happen is, what would happen? Well, potentially when I was operating this wheel out here, because of the gearing ratio, there's more in this counterweight here. There's a fair bit of mechanical pressure that occurs on this yellow guy when I do this. When I was doing this, it was moving this before. Then it wasn't. Actually, then it sort of was, and then now it's not at all. Glued to the shaft. It can't be glued to the shaft. It can't be glued to the shaft. The shaft doesn't move. Yet the finger comes in here and pulls this thing back and forth. It cannot be glued to the shaft. It cannot be glued or keyed to the shaft because of this. So this has to be a clutch plate mechanism separated when you go to push the button, and then it comes back when it engages with the gear. It can't come back any further, so there can't be any spring pressure against any of this stuff in here. That's metal there. I'm sure this is metal here too. Then this little metal plate, whoops, I don't know, you can't see any of this really, can you? Really tough to see it. The metal plate, let me hold the camera here. The metal plate it can't be driven up against this piece. There's a separator down here. Unless, you know, all this and this part of the wheel, this has got to be it. This metal plate and this part of the clutch mechanism is supposed to travel with the yellow thing. So when the yellow thing gets pulled back, it pulls, this plate goes with it, and it pulls this apart. Well, why would that be? Because all you need to do is separate it from the gear. You don't need to separate this, because that's essentially what I've got right now. Well, the only way you can tune this radio. So here's what we're going to have to do. Here's a way out of this. I'm not going to recommend it. Somehow we set this button for one extreme, we set this button to the other extreme of the tuning. Then when you want to tune the radio, you do this thing. You do this. I laugh, but you know what? That's what it might come down to now. So that's not. Well, then you know what? You become dependent on these buttons. if we can't get the knob to work, these buttons are the only way. And you know, that's not bad. 5 buttons, 5 stations, that's not that bad. Of course, yeah, that would be quite complicated to do, because you'd have to tune the station, doing this. Good luck getting that tuned. Then you'd have to, you know, pull these buttons out, push them into lock-in, because you can't do the fine tuning here. Okay, that's enough in my head for now. I really think there's either an observation I'm not thinking to make that would help understand what's going on here. A further set of gears. Sometimes these things will have teeth, and it's not so much a gear, but when you separate them, then the teeth are apart and things can turn, and when you snap them back, the teeth go, and now you're locked in. But I don't see anything like that in there. That would be exactly how I would think they would do this. They would want to use gears and teeth or something pretty solid, so there's no slippy here. This was very slippy. This had huge play in it. Had huge play, and it was becoming difficult to tune. Because this is driving the orange thing, and the orange thing is driving nothing. Yeah, the problem right now has nothing to do with this being disengaged. It's engaged with the yellow thing. It's the yellow thing that's not doing the job. The fact that it rotates on the shaft right now is immaterial, that it can rotate on the shaft, because its drive is delivered through the clutch mechanism to a fixed thing on the shaft. So if you can drive the fixed thing, you'll drive the shaft. Not much to it, boy oh boy. An awful lot of thought going into a couple pieces of plastic. Okay, time to stop, drink some coffee, and ponder the situation. Okay, I think I figured it out. I was writing an email to Mr. K, the owner of this, just detailing the situation as best I can, and in the midst of writing it, I think I understand what must have happened here. So, it must be the case that this part of the clutch, the inside part of the clutch, and this plate and this wheel are supposed to be connected together. So if you move the yellow wheel, you move the clutch. So if this pulls back the yellow wheel, it will disengage the gear and separate this clutch. The clutch is stuck. The clutch is not sliding back and forth. So I think what has happened then, another step along the way here, is the whatever it is that fuses this part of the clutch to this has stopped.
And what would that be? Glue? Now, you know, when everything is lubricated properly in a radio like this, there isn't an awful lot of force in these kinds of parts, because everything's kind of moving freely. But as they get older, forces build up, you know, shafts don't turn well in sleeves, and before you know it, was more and more and more pressure. So at some point, you know, the other part that's missing is there must be some like you can only drive this forward so far before it engages with the gear down here. It can't go any further forward. There should be some kind of springiness in here. So when this reaches its stop point, there is a spring pressure on this pad. So I think what's happened is these things are stuck together. These is fused in here. That's quite possible. And two pieces of rubber shoved together for years and years. They can fuse. Now maybe we can separate them. Maybe not. Once it's fused, then it begins to fight the mechanism, and something's got to give. That would be my assessment, as best I can do now.
This little plate is a bit of a spring thing. I can't see it. I can't see the spring mechanism. I can't see what would drive this together and hold it together. Unless they've just made super precise. It's a super precise mechanical thing, and just when this gear finishes engaging, this thing is under enough pressure. That's pretty precise construction. A little hard to believe. The other thing is this whole mechanism, can it move a bit? I can't believe it. This is as solid as a rock. Is it going to be as solid as can be? That's got to be the deal. So part of the way to get this going again would be to separate this out. Where's that fish knife? I got to bring that fish knife in here. Use a fish knife, or maybe it's time. Maybe it's time for this knife. I think I've showed this before. That's the, I think that flag is the Finnish flag, I think. When you see this is an Olympic, night, an Olympic, what do you call it? Keepsake. I can't think of the word for it. Pretty nice. Look at the writing on it. It's got a name on it. It's really something. So this is for the Olympics in 1940. This is a memorabilia from the 1940 Olympics. The thing is, there was no Olympics in 1940. They never happened. 1940, the Second World War was going. So I have memorabilia from an Olympics that never happened. What a beauty. I don't think I'm going to shove this in the radio, though. It's just a little too much. Strange, eh? This isn't the only one. There's a lot of these around. Seen them on eBay. So, okay, we're not going to use that knife. I need to use something, I need to use a knife because it needs to be strong. I'm going to use kind of a stabbing motion here. Let me get that rubber mallet out. Okay. Let me just somehow get some of this on camera here. So we want this to be in the open position. Well, so this doesn't move anywhere. Not, how does that fit into the story? I don't know. I can't fit that in. Ignore it. What I need is a really good close-up shot of what's going on here with this knife. Yeah, okay. Let's do that. Close-up shot. Close-up shot. Okay, you can see the camera there. We'll see if I have any room left to work in here. So I can get the other camera out of the way. Pretty cool day here, by the way. Getting close to 0 overnight. Oh, you know what? The knife won't work this way. What can I see in the camera? I'm relying on the camera image here. What happened? What just happened? The knife just goes sliding? The light went. I think I actually separated it. Did that happen? Did that happen? And the knife went kind of unexpectedly. Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's kind of what. That's good. That's a good sign, isn't it? Isn't that a good sign? They're not so stuck together. Okay, I got it. Yeah. Okay, what did we achieve there? Okay, turning the front knob. Okay, radio's not tuning. Turning the side knob. Both parts are tuned. Well, it may still be stuck. I may have just kind of undid the top part. It may still be stuck back here. I need to kind of work it apart a little further. I believe this knife was my grandfather's knife, which he used for fish that he caught not in Finland but here in the Welland Canal.
I was telling the owner one of the things that frightens me the most about working on other people's equipment is, ruining it. I'm just sticking a knife into it.
This is one way to ruin it. Plunge a knife into the heart of the mechanism.
Didn't seem to want to separate there, did it? The knife may be a little too crude.
Make sure this is open. Just pushing a button.
There we go. Separated completely. Back together again. Okay. Tuning with the knob. So you can tell the mechanism's not fully engaged. This isn't moving. Okay. And then turning with this. Now you can see it's driving the clutch. I probably still have to dig deeper in there. Separate it more. I need a better way to separate it. I need a better way to separate it. Now I have some, I forgot what they're called. What are these things called?
These are called steel opening tools. Okay, there's another word for these, but it's a very thin
metal tool. I use this for prying open plastic parts.
And radio clutches. Okay, so we go down. This is really awkward with this camera right here. Get it in place. I think you're just seeing the side of my hand right now. I can't even look. I have to stare at what I'm doing directly.
Okay, look at the camera now. So why am I trying to do this? Because I think these are stuck, and because they're stuck, the mechanism probably from plunging one of the buttons at some point separated. And then I'm guessing it continued. You were able to tune this radio simply because this yellow thing is sticking on the shaft inappropriately. It's not supposed to, but it was. And I'm going to guess my tuning from the outside here on the big wheel slowly wore out that inappropriate connection to the shaft. So in other words, this radio was working in a way it shouldn't have.
And I fixed that, and so it was not working the way it should not be working, which is the way it is now. And yeah, this just isn't going to do it. Some other way to separate them. Some other way. Instead of wedging right down in there, can I not get a grip on something else? It's looks like two metal plates with the rubber fused inside. Like, can I push on those plates? Maybe we can't get a grip on them, I don't think. Besides, when you're pulling, you got a circular thing and you're pulling on one edge, you're twisting it on the shaft. It can bite and lock on the shaft. So you apply more pressure, all that's going to happen is a bend is going to take place, which doesn't sound like a good idea to me.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. There's a spring in there somewhere. There's a spring in there.
Slamming it back. So it's separated.
Okay, we're getting somewhere here. Well, you're pushing against this yellow wheel. You're pushing against the little tab. You're pushing against the mechanism. Way in the back there. Is that where the spring is?
Hidden. I did see a spring in there, didn't I? I did see a spring. Okay, so I'm going to try to kind of release the mechanism back here. I'm going to push the sliding bar and push this bar here. Can I push it right here? What am I wedging on? Yeah, I can do it. Just go right here. So see, that should be separating the yeah, see, it's loose. It's loose as can be. Isn't this supposed to, well, maybe it can be loose, and it's supposed to lock against this and against this at the same time when you close it. But what happens is it doesn't lock onto this. It doesn't lock onto that. It'd take me a long time to get here, that's for sure. But you know, you can't afford to make some mistakes. Some you can certainly make and recover from, but others. So that's just loose and spinning. When I let this in, well, see what happened? It locks up against this, so I can't see if it's locked against this. Oh, that just moved again. I think the teeth were not engaged; they just popped in. Okay, check tuning. Tuning nothing. The slip is in here. The slip is in here. This metal plate must be doing something. They're not doing something. I thought that plate didn't move. Didn't I convince myself of that? Yeah, plate not moving. So, you know, this is bumping up against the plate, and the plate is bumping up against this, and the plate is not fixed to anything. Is it? Is it? Yeah, you can make it move if you want or not. Is it just a pressure fit that's just not pressuring? You know what else could happen? These rubber things may have shrunk. Their dimension may have shrunk. If this thing is like tuned up to, you know, 1/4 millimeter to make it all work, a little shrinkage here and there. It's the shrinkage. Okay, I think that's an even better assessment of the situation. Good time to stop and think a little bit before getting carried away here. Well, I think I've reached a decision point here. Now I understand what's gone on with this. I think I know how to potentially solve it with some epoxy, but I'm not about to do that. Stick epoxy in there. What I've realized is I can carry on with the other work I'm doing. You can see I've got my scope going. I got everything ready to go here today, but I've used up all my time on doing what I've done. I can still tune the radio just by turning this knob. No damage is happening from doing it, and I can leave the solution for the front knob till later. Maybe some better ideas will come up along the way of how to deal with this, and maybe more insight or something like that, so I can postpone the solution, the final solution, until later, and carry on with the tuning, which is really really what my intent was. So, okay, got somewhere. Good. I'm off to the grocery store, so have a great day, and tomorrow I will continue with the attempt at a full and complete alignment, done properly without any problems. Right. See ya.